감사합니다. 성경 말씀 읽겠습니다. 요한복음 4장의 말씀. 요한복음 4장 46절 말씀. 하셨으면 요한복음 4장 46절 말씀. 예수께서 다시 갈릴리 가나에 이르시니 저는 물로 포도주를 만드신 곳이라. 왕의 신하에서 그 아들이 가버나움에서 병들었더니 그가 예수께서 유대로부터 갈릴리 오심을 듣고 가서 청하되 내려와서 내 아들의 병을 고쳐주소서 하니 저그 죽게 되었습니다. 예수께서 가라사 너희는 표적과 기사를 보지 못한 본을 믿지 아니하느냐. 신하가 가라사 주여 내 아이가 죽기 전에 내려오소서. 예수께서 가라사대 가라 내 아들이 살았다 하시는데 그 사람이 예수의 하신 말씀을 믿고 가더니 내려가는 길에서 그 종들이 오다가 만나서 아이가 살았다 하거늘 그 낳기 시작한 때를 물은즉 어저께 7시에 열렸더랬나이다 하며 예수께 내 아들이 살았다 말씀하신 그때인지라 하고 자기가 그 온전히 다 믿으라. 54절 제가 못해 54절 말씀 읽겠습니다. 이것은 예수께 유대에서 갈릴리 오심으로 다시 세 번째 표적입니다. 갈릴리에서 예수님께서 제일 먼저 행하신 일은 갈릴리 가나 혼인잔치집에서 물로 포도주를 만드는 일이었습니다. 그리고 이제 이 왕의 신하가 사는 곳, 왕의 신하 아들인 곳은 갈릴리 가버나움이라는 곳인데 가버나움 갈릴리 바다 북쪽에 있는 작은 도시고 그 다음에 갈릴리 그 가나는 좀 더 이렇게 남쪽으로 내려와서 갈릴리 가나 그리고 그 예수님이 태어난 그 지역 이제 나사렛 그 비슷한 곳인데 제가 지도를 보고 이렇게 대강 그 뭐야 뭐 제법 제가 계산은 없지만 적어도 한 25km, 30km쯤 떨어진 곳이 갈릴리 그 가나에서 가버나움이라는 데가 참 그만큼 거리가 되는 거죠. 왕의 신하가 가버나움에서 아들 병들어 죽어가게 됐을 때 왕의 신하는 그 아들을 살리고 싶은 마음이 너무 간절했습니다. 근데 뭐 어찌가 좀 방법이 없는데 마침 예수님의 소문을 들었습니다. 그래서 이 왕의 신하가 자기 아들을 살리기 위해서 이제 갈릴리 가나까지 예수님 계신다는 소문 듣고 내려왔습니다. 내려와서 가서 내 아들을 살려주십시오 하고 예수님 간절하게 부탁을 합니다. 예수님께서 뭐라고 말씀? 너희는 이렇게 돼 있죠. 너희는 표적과 기사를 보지 못한 도무지 믿지 아니하느냐. 신하가도 주여 내 아이가 죽기 전에 내려오소서. 그러니까 이제 갈릴리 그 가버나움이란 데서 가나까지 내려오셔서
So it's the servant of the king that went all the way to Jesus in Capernaum to ask him to be healing. But what Jesus said unto the servant, he said that your son liveth. So when the master servant he sees, he thought to himself, oh, Jesus, he says that he liveth. So it brought about many thoughts inside of his heart. The biggest problem is, no matter how much our thoughts may think that it's right and also it's good, our thoughts and the thoughts of Jesus, they're so different. Therefore, it seems as though that I say this often. However, in the many numerous books of the Bible, There are many conversations that take place between Jesus and also the people there. Jesus between Peter and also Jesus between many people. You can see the most special trait of that is that when it may be 1 out of 10, is that Jesus' thoughts and our thoughts, they're different. And so as one day he says unto him, he says, Abraham, do not call your wife Sarai, but call her Sarah. For I will have her be with child. And so the one who said this, it was not Peter, it was not Paul, it was not Pastor Oksu Park, but it was God himself who said this. What God said was, he says, how can a child that is 100 years old be able to have a child? And Sarah is 90 years old. Have Ishmael live before thee. So even though as God speaks, but as the father of faith, he was unable to accept these words inside of his heart. God said these words unto Abraham when he was 99 years old. And at the time, she also, Sarah, it ceased to be the manner of woman with her. It was impossible for her to be able to have a child. However, when God said that you will be with child, Abraham, he could not understand these words. It's because the thoughts of God and the ways that God lives is different from us. God said that you can eat of any fruit that is of the garden, but not eat of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. The day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. But the serpent said unto them, saying that no, you will not surely die. When you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will come to know good and evil. And so there is always temptation inside the words of the devil. He says, hey, if you eat of it, you will become like God. You will become like God. How great is it to become like God? Adam, he had the heart of wanting to become like God. That was why he went against the word of God. And eventually he gets deceived by the devil to be able to eat of the fruit of knowledge, good and evil. And so she says that you can eat of any fruit that is of the garden, but on the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. In order for you to accept the words of the devil, then you have to step all over the word of God in order for you to take in the word of Satan, the devil. So now Adam, he has to choose between the word of God or the word of the devil. And right then, Adam, he took the side of the serpent. He came onto the side of the serpent. And from that moment on, the evil spirit began to rule over man and began to put in numerous thoughts into the heart of man. Everyone, for a very long time, I was able to teach many inmates in prison. And also, whenever I had the opportunity, I would sit down and talk to these inmates. And these inmates, after they've committed a crime, they came into prison, but they only talk about what's been revealed. They always hide everything. So with these inmates, they always have these secrets, dark secrets that they can never tell other people. But the thing about people, the fascinating thing is that the more secretive it is, people want to talk about it. You also feel that as well, right? So the thing is, you can't just go out telling everyone, and you're going to be in big trouble. So these inmates, they would come over to me and they would secretly tell me their dark secrets. And I heard many of them. There was one time I met somebody who committed a robbery, and it was a very funny, interesting story. This person took a knife and then went into a house. Right there in the yard, there was a certain woman that was there. She was laying out her laundry, and then she came in with a knife, and then all of a sudden the lady says, he told the lady, "Hey, give me your money." And then the lady says, "Well, you came into the wrong house." So he thought to himself, is she psycho? Maybe she's not well in her mind. And all of a sudden, he said that my husband is a policeman, she says. And right then, it says, my husband's actually home today. He's off. And then she went away and she called him, "Hey, honey." And right then, there was a big man that was big that came out of that room. All he remembers is up until that moment when that guy came out, but afterwards, he has no memory of what happened. And so the thing is that he just got beaten up, and then eventually he ended up being like that. And so committing some sort of robbery, it's not easy at all. It's very frightening at times and also scary. But the thing is, if you hear the story of those people who commit crime, the very interesting thing is, I heard the stories of many, many different people. I heard the stories of, thieves and murderers. And these people, as I hear these stories, there is one thing that's common between all of them. The one thing that becomes common is that when they first started off doing this, they said that I was happy up until a certain point before this incident took place. They said that they were always happy. But if you listen to what they said, all of a sudden there was a certain thought that came out of them. And there is a certain thought which they never had that which begins to lead and carry them. And so most people, they just think to themselves, "Oh, I guess I'm having these kinds of thoughts." But if you just think about it just a little bit, the thing is that, let's say the woman caught in the act of adultery, she was caught committing adultery, and she just thought, "Oh, that guy looks handsome. I want to go and sleep with that man." It's not that she just ended up going there and committing adultery. But let's say that she had the heart of wanting to go and commit adultery with that guy. But it's not that she just goes in and starts committing adultery. But there was the struggle inside of her heart. "Oh no, I shouldn't do this. This is a sin. If I get caught, then I'm going to be stoned to death. I'm going to be put to death." So there's a thought thinking of wanting to commit adultery, and the thought that resists, that says no. One thing that you have to know very precisely is your thoughts are only one, they're not divided into two. That means that one of the two are the thoughts that are handed to you by the evil spirit. And so as you defeat that thought, and he says, "I should not commit adultery," then eventually you win. You're on top. But if the evil spirit continues to put in you the thought that, "Oh, to commit adultery," and if he puts in this large amount of thought into you, then the thing is that people end up just committing sin, and then they end up walking that path. So even inside the prisons, if you hear the stories about the people who committed these crimes, they say that they were happy up until a certain point, up until the point that they had this thought enter into them. And then at the end, what they say is that I was not in my right mind at the time. It seemed like something was covering my eyes. Some people, they talk about how they committed a crime and they talk about the evil which they've done. And so some people inside the prisons, they're just like a women almost. They're so, it's not that all women, they're all soft-hearted, but they look so, peaceful, and they look so innocent. And so then the thing is, I shouldn't be asking these questions, but I asked them, "What is your crime?" That's actually, not a question that you should be asking around, but I was so curious. He was a born again brother, and I asked this brother, "Hey, brother, what was your crime?" And so I really was curious, so I asked him. And so he was so curious as to want to know, and so then I asked him, "So, brother, hey, what's your crime?" And then right then, his face became very red. He said that it was murder and attempted murder. "What, brother? You killed somebody and also you attempted to kill another person and you got caught for it? It seems like you can't even catch a fly." One day, this brother, as he was crying, he talked about how he ended up killing someone. He got married in Busan and he was living a very happy life with his family. But one day, for some reason, he just started thinking to himself that his wife is trying to fool him, deceive him. So women, and so the biggest fault that a woman can do is to lie to her husband. May seem as though that lying is not much, but if once the husband gets to know that the wife is lying to him, then there's no way that the husband can have trust in that wife. And so that's when all the problems of the family start to take place. If the husband is able to trust the wife, then whether it may be tens of thousands of issues, they will not be a problem at all. But the fact that the husband cannot trust the wife, that is the most dangerous thing that can take place within a family. But the thing is, women, they have no idea about that. So then at times they would just say lies here and there. And so it may just seem as though that you're just lying like this and that. But by doing those kinds of things, eventually you're breaking the trust between one another. When the husband cannot trust the wife any longer, then that's when you start to have distrust and start to doubt your wife. It's so much better as the wife says. It may seem as difficult to say it then, but then to be able to say, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, I did this wrong." But by doing this, eventually you're bringing warmth to the family. You're also bringing about trust, so that the husband can trust you. But let's say you lie here and there, and you just say, "Oh, it seems like it's okay for me to be able to lie here and there, like this and like that." But once this continues once or twice, the very scary thing about this is that no matter how much the husband wants to trust the wife, there is no way that the husband can trust the wife any longer. When the husband is able to trust the wife, then, "Oh, my wife, she's very honest. Oh, it must be very difficult. It must be very burdensome for her to be able to say these kinds of things to me. She knows that I'm going to be angry if I were to say this to her, but she's very honest with me. She's very upfront." And that's when that wife becomes a very respected and a very great wife. And that's when the husband can have rest inside of his heart toward his wife. But then, right when he gets to know at one point, "Oh, my wife, it seems like she lied to me." And so, by that one thing, that's when you start to become doubtful about 1 to 10 to 20 things. And so, majority of all the faults and also the difficulties that bring about is within a family and a couple where the husband cannot trust the wife any longer, and that's when it ends up being a divorce. Even if, let's say, you go through difficulties from your husband, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, I made this type of mistake this time," and by saying these kinds of things, then right away the husband's trust begins to build towards the wife. And of course, whatever the husband does, the wife can't know everything, and whatever the wife does, the husband can't know everything. But once you start to lie, then you start to become doubtful about the doubtful things and doubtful about the trustful things. And that's when you start to build this great wall between one another. And when you look at certain women, it seems as though it's very difficult to bring this type of story up and to be able to be upfront about it. But there are certain ladies that bring up everything and to talk about those things to their husband. Those are the people that are able to lead a family very well. Everyone, I went a little sidetrack a little bit. But if we were to go back, that brother that was inside the prison, what he told me was, for some reason, he just felt inside of his heart that his wife was fooling and trying to deceive him. And so for some reason, it seems as though that she's trying to trick me. What is it? What is it? And so that's when she began to have distrust and doubt inside of his heart. For some reason, I don't know exactly what it was, but then it's trying to deceive me. And then one day, he got to know that his wife was there actually just dancing around. Everyone, the thing is, in Africa, dancing around is a good thing. And that's when, as soon as they hear the drum beat, the African ladies, they have their arms up and then their butts are moving around, and they don't even think about their baby that's in the back and her neck is like dangling around, but they're still dancing and dancing. For an hour they would dance. But these are things that are necessary for Africa. The African women, they have numerous unspeakable difficulties that are inside their hearts. Let's say that their son caught malaria and died, but now their second child has malaria, and she has no money, so she's not able to buy any sort of medicine for this child. So everyone, the African people, one thing that's a little frustrating about the African people is let's say the malaria medicine in our Korean currency, it's only 1,500 won. And so all you have to do is just go out and buy that and then be able to just pay for it. But the women, they don't have that type of money to be able to buy the malaria medicine. And so then they end up eventually having the son die because he has no medicine. One thing that really frustrates me the most about Africa is that when the husband dies, or when the son dies, they say that if the funeral, they don't do a funeral, do what they do is they go in debt for 3,000 and then they will go at. You just have to go and try to get that $1 and then try to use it for the malaria medicine. But then eventually, the child ends up dying, and then you have to go in debt to give $3,000 to give a big funeral. If not, then they say that the spirit of the child will go into a very bad place. But the dancing of Africa is great because people, they just dance to any type of beat. And so I was also dancing one time. So it was the very first time that choir came and they went to Kenya. And so then we were dancing around, and at that time the director came out and she was also dancing along with me. And so then, some pastor took that video and this and it says, "Your steps are all off." My wife was yelling at me. And I told her that in Africa, it's right to say that there's, it's to be offbeat and off step. So it's not like for all day long, but let's say that you were to dance for about an hour, then all the difficulties of your heart, it will fade away from your heart. And that's why in Africa, people need to dance. But everyone, even within our IYF, we do a lot of dancing. In the beginning, what we do is the folk dancing. And so in the beginning, men, the male and female students, they feel very awkward with each other, but then they're able to do the dancing together. But they say that. And so then what I heard was that psychologists, they said that if the men and women, they're able to, in the broad daylight, be able to dance together and holding hands, it brings down a lot of sexual harassment, sexual crime. And so the thing is, even though it's the same dancing, and so it's the same dance, DANCE, but the African dance and the Korean dance, it's totally different from one another. So the thing is that the husband, right when he found this out, he felt struck by this. And that's when he went to his wife and then tried to, try to comfort her and tried to do everything he could. But the thing is that the wife, she wouldn't stop doing this. And it drove the husband nuts. And he wanted to go out and just kill her and do something about this. But then one day, one thing that he got to know was, and so his wife doesn't really want to do the dancing, but it's a sister-in-law that keeps taking her to go dancing. And so then he was very angry with the sister-in-law. And then he told the sister-in-law he says, "Sister-in-law, there's one thing that I need to ask you, please. I beg you. Stop taking my wife around and making her dance like that." And so then he begged her. But then the sister-in-law, and so he said something that was really demising. He says, how dare you? Who do you think you are that you're going to tell me about my sister to do this and do that? But the thing is that she said these words were so demising, and eventually he just went nuts. And then soon after, he realized that there was a knife in his hand and there was blood down on the floor. And he realized that he killed somebody. And he was not in his right mind at all, he says. He says, "Oh, I just killed somebody." And then he just went out and he just told everybody, "Hey, come out. I'm going to kill everyone." And then that's when he ended up killing somebody with murder. And then also he went for an attempted murder as well. And so then they asked if he wanted a lawyer. And he said, "I don't need a lawyer." And he sent away the lawyer. And eventually the lawyer called this person over and he said, Do you think I'm here just to be able to receive just a few of your money? By just receiving this money, it's not going to be able to pay me anything. But I just felt bad for your young life. And so then I heard that the lawyer, he yelled at him. He says, sit down right here. And then he started telling him. And so then he was able to get rid of that punishment of death penalty. And then eventually he was living and serving his time in the prison. And I think to myself, how can a person like that be able to commit a crime? But if you look at really inside the prisons, all the people that are inside the prisons, it seems like they're not going to be able to commit any type of crime. But at that one moment, right when they accept that one thought into them, that's what they end up doing. Everyone, the thing is that the mind lecture, it becomes so helpful to be able to stop crime and also stop any type of bad thing. So I go overseas and I tell many people of high government positions and I tell them about the mind education. They really enjoy it and they really want to take this on. If you look carefully into the heart of man, what you can see is that people's hearts, they race towards sin and also want to commit adultery, want to commit sin. The thing is that people have all these kinds of hearts that are inside of them. But let's say that this is your thought, then it should be just one. But the thing is, the two thoughts, they are fighting with one another. Everyone, the heart that defeats one of the other heart, that's what begins to take over our flesh. And so, whether you commit adultery or not, it all depends on which thought overcomes, which thought oversees. So then let's say that adultery wins over me. Then let's say that it begins to lead you and to make you commit adultery and also makes you commit and do all these kinds of things. But your heart is never two. But the thing was, if you see it fighting one another, it's the heart which the devil put into there. And that's very precise. Everyone, do you understand? People just think to themselves that everything that's inside of their hearts is just their own heart. And everyone, the reason I'm telling you this is because we see here that the king's servant, he had his son die, and so doesn't really know much about the world of the heart, even though he knows about having to rule over a country. But his loving son was dying at that moment. What do you think he will come to see? Really, I could see that God gave this type of heart into the parents, into the heart of people. And the thing is also even within animals, here you see that how parents, animals have this kind of heart towards their babies as well. And so if we have this heart, the thing is that you have this heart towards your own child, but then you don't have this heart towards other children. So that's the heart that God gave. And if let's say that God didn't give that type of heart, if let's say that God didn't give the heart for a parent to love a child, there's not a single person that will be able to stand alive here. They say, oh, why'd you kill your child? Oh, I don't know. I just hit his head and then eventually just broke his head and skull, and that's why he ended up dying. But the thing is, parents, they don't do that, right? I'm sorry, but here what you see is that the king's servant, inside of him, you could see that there is a certain collision between the words of Jesus and also his own thoughts. If you look at this, we can see it's so amazing, and we can see the depiction of this. Everyone, let's say that as the son, he is sick here, and it says inside the Bible. Verse 47 says, when he heard that Jesus had come down from Judea unto Galilee, and he went unto him and besought him that he might come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So it says here, it's the son of the nobleman here. The place at which Jesus was Cana of Galilee. And then where his son was sick was in Capernaum. So then if you look at the distance, it's just around 25 to about 30 kilometers away. So let's say that you were to walk, if I've been walking around a lot, and so if I were to walk really quickly, usually about if you walk really fast, you can walk about 4 to 6 kilometers for within about an hour. But let's say you're talking about 30, then you have to walk at least 5 hours. And so then it says here right then is that you would come down. He said that when he come down out of Judea into Galilee, he went unto him and besought him that he would come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. And so by taking the six, because there's no way that he can take his sick son over there, so then to go from Capernaum all the way over to Cana of Galilee, he had wanted for to take Jesus to go down there to be able to heal his son. But what did Jesus say? Verse 48. And then Jesus said to him, except ye see signs and wonders, ye will not believe. And so to this person, there is one thing which Jesus wants to tell this man. And it says, except ye see signs and wonders. And he says, I just hope that you would believe. Understand? What that means is that he just hopes that he would believe, meaning that he had wanted to take Jesus to come all the way over there to be able to save him in Capernaum. But the thing is, Jesus says, no, if you believe that he is healed, then right at this moment, at this time, your son can be healed. Therefore, there's a difference between the thought of the nobleman and also between Jesus. So, of course, it may be difficult for Jesus to go all the way over down to Capernaum, but in order to save his son quickly, without having to go all the way there himself, he says that, no, your son liveth. If he believes in those words, then his son will live. But the most difficult thing about this is whether the nobleman is able to believe the word of Jesus and be able to take these words up to his son or not. And right then, he says that your son liveth, right? So everyone, the heart of the noble, what is the heart of the nobleman? Oh, my son right now is dying, so I want to take Jesus quickly over there to Capernaum to heal him, and he'll be healed. But he had no idea that he could just be healed simply by the word of Jesus alone. So his method was to take him to Capernaum and to sit him down before his son, and then to save his son. That's what he had wished for. But because Jesus, he's very busy, and also he has to go and heal the people, without having to go all the way to Capernaum, he just says that your son liveth. And right then, he wanted for the nobleman to be able to believe and trust these words of Jesus. Does that make sense? So then by hearing these words, right then the nobleman, he says, oh, even if Jesus doesn't go there necessarily, then he just believed inside of his heart that I just need to believe. Then it will just be done. Everyone, if you look inside the book of Acts, there is Eutychus. It says Apostle Paul, and once he were to leave, then he would never be able to come back. And so then, in the attic room, they had a meeting together and they had a prayer. And so before Apostle Paul left, they had gathered all together. And so then he began speaking unto them all night long. And so these people, they were listening to these words. And Eutychus, he was just there by the windowsill. The Eutychus, he was just sitting by the windowsill. It doesn't mean that you're going to fall and die. But then, he just thought that, oh, he was just going to end the word a certain amount. But then 12, 1, 2, he just go on, and he started falling asleep listening to the word. Oh, it seems like I'm going to fall asleep. And so then I may fall backwards. He might have thought that way if he was getting sleepy. But then you may know and be sleeping, but you may also be sleeping without yourself knowing, right? Do you also do that as well? Yeah, that's how people are. People at times they sleep without themselves knowing. So in the beginning, Eutychus, he didn't try to sleep, and he was there trying to listen to the word of Jesus. Well, I think that service is gonna be over soon, but the thing is, it wasn't over, and so he just kept going on, and eventually, he should have fell forward, but he didn't fall forward. He fell backwards, and from the third floor, he fell off, and eventually, he died right there. And so then within the meeting, this is the last meeting of where Paul was preaching, and it was a very difficult situation. So people, they went down and they realized that Eutychus died. But then Paul, he went down there and he saw that Eutychus had died. But the thing is, Paul, because he believed Jesus, and so even though we cannot see Jesus, but he's there, right there, right? We cannot see Jesus, but he's there, right? Do you not believe that? You believe it, right? It seems like, in your answers, in your response, that there are many people that don't believe. But listen very carefully. Even though we cannot see with our eyes, but Jesus, he's always here with us. Whether it may be yesterday or today, he's with us eternally. So if he is with us, and let me continue on with this. This Eutychus, when he fell from the third floor and he died, he just died right there, right? Yes, he just died. But if Jesus, he was there, surely he would have lived, right? Therefore, if you see Eutychus without Jesus, it says, oh, I'm so sad. Maybe I preached for a very long time. And he's like, that's what he might have thought. Oh, I shouldn't have preached this long. It's such a bad. Oh, how unfortunate. I'm just about to leave today. But Paul, he says, whenever I was in difficulty or problem, or when I was lonely or when I was empty, Jesus was always there. He was helping me. If he's not here, maybe it's a problem. But if he is here, then he had the heart that Eutychus would live. And so then even if, let's say, it were me, I would be able to go and be able to save him. And so, yes, he would live. This Eutychus, and so then his breath was gone and he was no longer able to do anything. But he went forward and he was able to begin to lead. And then he went over to me and says that, be silent, for there is life in him. Is that right? He says that there was life in him. Yes, there was life inside of him. Why? Because there was Jesus. The very interesting thing about the Bible is that inside of Genesis chapter 1, it says, for God created the heaven and the earth, and the land was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And when God, he created the heaven and the earth. But we don't know exactly what happened, but for a very long time, the earth was without form. It was also void, and the earth was in darkness. And whenever there's darkness that comes, it doesn't ever report to you, right? It doesn't declare that it's coming. Yes, at times there are frustrating and difficult things that come into our lives. Yes, there are many times like that. As it says that the land was without form and void, and darkness is upon the face of the deep. But whether it may be thousands and 10,000s and hundreds of millions of years, there is no way for it to be able to cast out that darkness. There's no way that it can cast out that formlessness and that void. But because the Spirit of God, it was also there as well, right? So because God said, let there be light, that in other words means darkness, go away. If there is light, then the darkness has no choice but to go away, right? Yes, that's when the darkness begins to go away. It's the very same thing. Even within our own lives, there are difficulties, there's hardships, and also there are tribulations, and there are many types of problems. If we are struggling and trying to cast those things out and make sure that those problems are resolved, we cannot do it ourselves. But the thing is, if we have the heart to believe in the word of Jesus, God said, let there be light. And then what does it say? It says, and there was light. And then what was after that? And God saw that the light was good. So everyone, when he said that when God saw the light, it was good, that also means, translated in the other way, that when he saw the darkness, it was bad. So everyone, if there is God, then darkness, it goes away. Therefore, when you're inside of sadness and you have void and you have some sort of hardship and pain inside of your heart, let's say between you and your spouse, it's not that you have to struggle and try and labor to try to cast these things out. But the thing is, if God is there, then the darkness, it will go away. This is what happens to us, everyone. Does that make sense? Therefore, the land is without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and God was there. God said, "Let there be light," and that's when darkness went away, and that's when the void went away, the formlessness went away. It's the very same story, whether it may be Genesis chapter 1. And also, Eutychus died. That was darkness. But, right there, Jesus was there. If Jesus is there, then the darkness will go away. Death will go away. There is one that is able to overcome death. Jesus, he will save Eutychus. Eutychus will come alive. And that's when that thought, right when you entered into him, it says, "Be of silence. Be silent, for there is life inside of him." That's what Apostle Paul can say clearly. Everyone, when we get to know about this world of faith and this heart, then everyone, this heart and also this faith, as it enters into us, then it casts out all the darkness inside of my heart, casts out all the despair, casts out all of the pain and the death. There is power to be able to cast out all those things. Amen? And Eutychus, after he fell and he died, if you look at the circumstance, yes, he died. This is considered darkness. However, the Jesus inside of me is light. That means that the darkness will go away. That means darkness, go away. And right when he had that heart, he says, "Hey, be quiet, be of silent." And there is life inside of him. That's what he's able to say. Does that make sense? That's what the Bible is made up of. John Choi, he was stung by the scorpion, he was dying. And yes, there was despair that came to him. But if you wait upon the Lord, if you look to the Lord, surely God, he will save you from the poison of the scorpion. It's so clear. It's so evident. And he says, I told him, "Hey, John, listen to me. You've been stung by the scorpion and you are dying right now. The doctors say that you cannot live 1 or more 2 hours." But what does the Bible say? Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31 says, "If you wait upon the Lord, you shall renew your strength." Wait upon the Lord and he will renew your strength. If you wait upon the Lord, then he will give you new strength. That means that you are able to overcome the poison of the scorpion. That's when the poison can no longer work inside of you. Everyone, there's a lot of despair and a lot of pain and a lot of difficulties and a lot of hardship that comes upon our lives. And that's why people don't want to experience something like that. That's why they get insurance and then they buy a good car, they buy a nice house, they buy a lot of good food, they buy a lot of things to be able to protect and help them, right? Just because you do those things, does that mean that misery doesn't come to us or sadness or pain doesn't come to us? No, yes, they do come. But everyone, if I have Jesus that can cast out all those things, and if I believe in that Jesus, then that Jesus, he can cast out all the darkness, just like the words that it says in Genesis chapter 1. That means that the darkness, it will be casted out. So he went to go and meet with the servant he went to go meet with the nobleman's son. Nobleman. And so right then the nobleman had the idea and the plan of wanting to take Jesus all the way up to Capernaum and to heal him. And so when he says unto him, he says, "Except ye see signs and wonders, you will not believe." He tells him basically to believe in him. "Even though I have not seen your son," but the nobleman, and he tells unto the nobleman, saying that your son liveth. Go thy way, thy son liveth. And he says that your son liveth. If he believes in Jesus, that means that he needs to believe that his son lives. If he does not believe in those words, then the work of Jesus cannot be fulfilled. The thing is, he has no choice but to believe in those words. And so that it's very most safe if he comes and be able to save and also heal him. He thinks to himself, "Oh, what's going to happen? I don't think it's going to be able to work out." And he starts to struggle here and there, but he says that your son liveth. There's no way that he cannot believe. And so it seems as though that, he lives. There's no need for me to go to Capernaum. He just feels inside of his heart that Jesus will not go all the way up to Capernaum with him because his son already lives. Even if I were to tell Jesus, let's go to Capernaum, he's not going to want to go. And also, the only one purpose that he came down to Cana of Galilee was whether you believe this fact or not. If you do not believe the word of Jesus, then that means that you're going to die. If he believes it, then he lives. And even though he cannot believe it, but he has no choice but now to believe it. This is the way that God leads us according to faith, actually. Actually, we didn't even have faith able to believe in the forgiveness of sins. We didn't have that faith, therefore we always said that we were sinners before, right? Yes, we used to live inside of our own thoughts. However, the work of Jesus is that he begins to stir up faith. He begins to bring and grow this faith inside of us. Even though he's not gone to Capernaum, but he believes, making him so that you go there believing that he's already healed. That's the work of Jesus. Even though Eutychus fell, he died. And even though he did not live, but Paul says and he believes that for Jesus, if he was here, then he will be saved. He lives. And so even though inside of your life there are problems and darkness, but this will become of light. This will be fixed. This will not be a problem. God does the work of stirring up faith inside of our hearts. This is the work which he does inside of our lives. And how amazing is that? And so the king's servant had no faith. Nobleman had no faith whatsoever when he came. But he was able to receive this faith. When we come to church, we talk about how great Pastor Park is and all this. The thing is that if he were to talk about all how great he is, then he is put at a loss. I'm put at a loss. Why? Because there's so many other great people that are greater than I am. There's a lot of handsome, nice, good-looking people, tall people. But the thing is that the most important thing is that we believe in God. The thing is that I always talk about is electricity. As long as electrical wires there are connected with one another, they're able to flow. Everyone, what is it that's leading all of us? And what is it that the power of God flows is when our hearts become one, it becomes connected with one another. Even when you first get married, you first start off with the same heart. When you first get married, right? Did you first start off by fighting? No. But you live together, and then it seems like it's right, but then when you go into the details, the thoughts of man and the thoughts of women, they're different from one another. And so then the woman, she could just say yes and follow the one husband, and she just thinks, oh, I don't think so. If I do it, it'll be much better. And I hear that the wife ends up having a lot of those kinds of thoughts. And what the husband thinks is, but still, I'm here. That's how this family is able to work this much and be able to grow like this. So the thing is that they always end up thinking like these kinds of ways. There's many times that I also think like that too. My wife, I don't think it's going to work out like that. I should do it much, much better. And so then if my wife follows me, then we are united, reconciled. And if she doesn't, then she ends up fighting with me. It's not just my household, but then everybody's household ends up being like that. Everyone, your household ends up fighting. But thing is if whether you believe in Jesus or not, this is much more serious case than that. Everyone, if you and Jesus' heart, it doesn't become one with one another, and then you begin to fight, and then you cry, and then you whine, and then you eventually match it with one another. But when you fight with Jesus, is that if you believe him, then your heart flows with one another, and the power of Jesus flows into you and begins to work inside of you, and his power works. If you do not believe, then it's a different thought. Then the work of Jesus cannot work inside of you, and that's why we need faith in our lives. And it says, oh, just because doing that, do you think that my son is going to be healed by that? You say that my son is going to live by doing this and that. I don't think that he's going to be able to live. There's no way. And so that means that he does not believe in Jesus, right? And so he just says, I can't go. But I tell you, hey, your son lives. Then even if I were to go all the way down there, what's the use of it? You don't believe me. There's no need for me to go down there then. And so when Paul is able to have this kind of faith inside of his heart to be able to save Eutychus, and this is when God begins to work and begins to live inside of us. Therefore, the nobleman here, in the beginning, even though he had wanted for him to come and heal him, and not only to come and heal him, but also in order to stir up faith inside of him, he tells him, "Your son liveth, believe in that." So then the nobleman, he took a look at this and he realized, oh, well, Jesus, he's saying that, he lives, and for me to be able to go there and to try to ask him to heal doesn't make any sense. And so he had no choice now to just go there and believe it. And that's when he had no choice but to move his thoughts into the direction of faith. And this is such an amazing fact. We cannot say all in words. Everyone, the way that Jesus, he works inside of us is like such. The thoughts which we have and the thoughts of Jesus, they are different. Everyone, let's say that when you try to unite your heart with Jesus, there is one thing that goes in the way in there. No matter what I may think the word of Jesus, he is right and he is more correct. And if it's Jesus says that it's going to rain, I may think that it's not going to rain. If Jesus says that it's going to rain, that means that it's going to rain. And therefore, I have to go and make the ark. And I have no choice. If they do not make the ark, then they have no choice but to receive destruction. And so then they come over to Noah and says, "Hey, Noah, come out of that. It's not even raining. What do you mean it's going to rain? It's getting frustrated in there. Hey, it's not raining at all. It's hot in there. What are you doing? Come out." And so then after one day, it didn't rain anymore. They're all laughing and mocking him, saying, "How did he end up becoming like crazy like that?" And so that's what everybody must have said. However, after about a week, hey, see, look, there's no need for you to be there, And then all of a sudden, the clouds begin to storm in, and then there's big, and it begins to rain so hard. It rained for 40 days, and it said that even the highest mountain were all covered. Mount Everest is the highest. It's the 8,882 meters. 84 meters? How tall is it? 40. Anyway, it's over 8,800. And so, from sea level to go up. And so then when you count within, let's say, 20 hours within a day, it's 24 hours, but then let's say that you count it as just 20 hours within a day. For 40 days to be able to go up 8,000 meters, 8,080, right? 8,800. How many meters have to go up within a day? It's 200 meters, right? Isn't that right? For 40 days, right? Within a day, it's 200 meters. And so it just goes up. The thing is, if you go up too late, then you can't make it in time. And then you have to go all the way up to 8,800 meters. Right then, all these people, they realized inside of their heart that they had all lived foolishly and that they had despised the Lord. It's the same thing. Even the Lord, he is not here. And even though the world has not gone away, people think to themselves, oh, if I die and go to hell, sure, I'll just go to hell. Oh, I don't want to go to heaven, but if everybody goes, it's going to be too crowded in there. And so they just say all sorts of foolish things. But the thing is, they realize how foolish it was when they get there. This is the word of God, this is the truth, and this is the reality. Do you know how many people, they just read the Bible, half-heartedly, and they don't even believe it? The thing is, if you don't believe in it, eventually you end up receiving death. But at this moment, the people that despise the word of God and they just follow their own thoughts, they all realize that this is leading to destruction. Everyone, we've been living inside of the sin for a very long time. Why? Because we've been led by the ways of the devil. But the thing is, no longer following after our own thoughts. And now we have turned our ways into the ways of believing in Jesus. And therefore, the king's servant, as the nobleman's servant, the nobleman, he begins to think, oh, I did not believe in Jesus until now. If Jesus says that my son is healed, then he is healed. Oh, yes, my son, he liveth. And that's when he says, thank you very much. He went back over to Capernaum. And so then as he was going up, and all of a sudden the servants came down along the way. Hey, says, nobleman, your son lives. By the 7th hour already, that's when, that was the time when Jesus said that my son liveth. And that's when the fever began to drop. So then he says, and those words are able to be expressed and be powerful all the way over to even Capernaum. That's how, the prayers can reach all the way over to heaven, isn't it? Right? Amen. And that's why God, even now, he works inside of every single faith. Even before each and every word what Jesus says, whether it may fit me or not, I'm wrong. But when I come to believe in the word of Jesus, then that's when it becomes a perfect faith. Amen. And so even though your son may have not died, there are times you have difficulties. There are times difficulties and hardships that appear inside of your lives. And so I cannot solve this problem, but then Jesus, he's there being able to solve this problem for me. If Jesus is there, then he's able to lead me from this. And as you're able to grow inside of faith in this sort of way, then as he says that your son liveth. And in the beginning you may not have believed it to begin with, but the word of Jesus begin to come into you. And no matter what kind of difficulty and also hardship that we may face, then this faith is able to truly lead us, making it so that it will be so glorifying and also graceful unto the Lord. Amen. And let us throw away all of our own experiences and also everything that which we have believed and also followed until now. Allow us not to just believe in whatever I understand, even though it may not be understandable. And also when I come to believe in the word of Jesus, then the powerful word of Jesus, it will come forth. Then he will come to fulfill all the great and small things inside of our lives. And this is what we truly believe. I believed in the same way, and that's how I was able to witness and see how Jesus worked inside of my life in that sort of way. And I hope that you would also come to believe the same thing, so that you would not believe and trust your own strength, but come to trust and follow the strength of the Lord. If Jesus says that I live, then I live. If he says that I'm clean, then I'm clean. If he says that I'm righteous, then I'm righteous. And if you're able to believe those words and run forward with that heart, then you become alike with Jesus, and Jesus will be expressed inside of you. And no matter what problem or hardship you may face, truly it will come to bestow so many blessings upon you, and you'll become people who will become such honorable and also obedient servants of God. At this time, we'll have time to be able to pray